So, you want to read some Batman comics? Well, I've got good news for you. You've got a lot to choose from. If you're unaware, for whatever reason, Batman is DC's most popular character, being one of the most iconic and well-known superheroes of all time. And because of this, DC really likes to publish Batman comics. Now, if you're watching this, you've undoubtedly been recommended some of the most popular comics. You got your Killing Jokes, your Year Ones, your Long Halloweens, your Court of Owls all the biggest, most influential stories that you've heard a million people mention a million times before. And that shit's boring. Those books are great and everything, but with just the sheer number of Batman comics that are being published, we can do better than that. So here are my recommendations for my favorite lesser known Batman comics that can be picked up both by new readers and longtime fans. I'm trying my best not to use the word underrated because who knows what the fuck that word means. The first book is All-Star Batman and Robin, The Boy Wonder by Frank Miller and Jim Lee. My favorite version of Batman is one that's hyper-aggressive and abuses his sons, and he calls them slurs and forces him to live in a cave and eats rats. It really adds to the mystique and I'm sorry, I couldn't help myself. As always, I recommend buying books from a locally owned comic book store or checking them out at the library, but if you want to go digital, there are affiliate links down below that help with the channel. The actual first book I recommend is Batman Universe by Brian Michael Bendis and Nick Darrington. Now, I will fully admit I'm not always the biggest fan of Bendis' writing. I think when it works really well, but there are times that it just doesn't really do it for me. Civil War 2. Civil War 2 is mostly it. And so, trust me when I say this, Batman Universe is great. It's a 6-issue miniseries that has Batman tracking Riddler after he steals a Fabergé egg. Things aren't what they seem, and it sends Batman on this trek throughout the entire DC universe to uncover the secrets of what's been going on. The book was originally printed in a Walmart original book, funnily enough, but just like Superman Up in the Sky, which was also originally from the same kind of book, it turned out fantastic. My favorite thing about this book is that it's a much needed break from the grim and dark Batman that we've grown accustomed to over the years. That stuff's all well and good, believe me, but sometimes I just love to read a Batman story where things are just fun. The art is fantastic with some gorgeous set piece scenes, and it has a ton of different guest characters from the greater DC universe like Green Lantern, Deathstroke, Green Arrow, and even Jonah Hex. It's a really great book, definitely recommend it if you're looking for just a pure, fun Batman story. The next book I recommend is Robin and Batman by Jeff Lemire and Dustin Ewan. As the title would suggest, this is more of a Robin-focused book than specifically Batman, but this book still has some really great Batman moments and a really good arc for Bruce. It follows Dick Grayson, who's just started joining Batman in the field as a sidekick, and we see him develop the identity of Robin while also developing his relationship with Bruce. I've always loved stories where Bruce is forced to grow and change, specifically when he realizes he can't treat his Bat family as soldiers to fight his war, but instead as a greater family. The art is gorgeous with this beautiful watercolor style that makes everything seem like a dreamy flashback. Lemire is always a great writer, he's always been one of my favorites. His run with Andrea Sorrentino on Green Arrow and New 52 is legendary, and I think he tells the story of Batman's growth really well. The book's super short, only 3 issues long, so I really recommend it if you're like me and you love to see Batman learn and grow into a better person. And speaking of growth, this video is brought to you by Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for anyone who loves learning and wants to explore their creativity and learn new skills, allowing you to invest in yourself and your personal growth. If you have a specific skill you're trying to learn, like creative writing, art, filmography, or 3D visual effects, Skillshare is the perfect place to start. Skillshare is ad-free, has new premium classes launching every week, and is available in a variety of languages like Spanish, French, Portuguese, and German. If you've checked out my recent Spider-Man pitch videos, you'll see that I've been dipping my toes more and more into using Blender to help visualize some scenes in these bigger pitches. Blender is a super powerful tool, but it's kind of a challenge to get to know. So the course Create Cinematic Scenes with Blender 3D Series 1 by Kaiwan Shaban has really helped me get a handle on how to use the software and all the different ways I can visualize my ideas for future videos. The first 1,000 people to use the link down below will get a month free trial of Skillshare to help unlock your creativity and just start making art. And thanks to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Also, I moved and had to make a new set. Let me know. Oh, I've left the light on there that whole time. The next book I want to recommend is Batman Ego by Darwin Cook. This is why I didn't call things underrated, but I really feel like this book doesn't get talked about enough. Darwin Cook is one of the greatest creators to ever grace the comics industry, with a style so gorgeous and iconic that his books are forever some of my favorite stories ever made. And Ego is no different. This is perhaps the definitive Batman story, at least the one that so perfectly encapsulates his psychology and why he does what he does. In short, after a particularly traumatic night as Batman, Bruce Wayne returns to the cave and considers retiring the mantle of Batman, causing his mind to split against itself, and Bruce Wayne has a conversation with his Batman persona. My favorite thing about this book is just the philosophical discussion between Bruce Wayne and this being that is this twisted idea of Batman. and Bruce's perseverance to hold up his ideals and continue doing the right thing. It's a great book by one of the greatest legends in all of comics history, and has been quoted as being a big inspiration for Matt Reeves' work on the Batman. And if that doesn't sell you on it, I don't know what will. Before I get to like my number one pick, here's some honorable mentions that I wanted to talk about, but probably shouldn't be in the big list, I guess. The first honorable mention being Tom King's run on Batman Rebirth. Now, this is a hot take, but I absolutely adore this comic. Not everyone's into it, some people hate it with a passion, but I love it. The art in this run is great. Specifically, I really love how Mikel Janin draws Batman. The big thing is some of the dialogue feels very stilted in this book. I like it. I think it works really well for the Batman character, but I totally get why some people wouldn't like it. I think much like Bendis, when Tom King's writing hits, it really hits. So I recommend trying it out for yourself to see how you feel. The next honorable mention is Batman the Black Mirror by Scott Snyder, Jock, and Francesco Francavilla. I didn't say that right. I know I didn't say that right. Scott Snyder's most popular Batman work is his run on the New 52 Batman, which is of course fantastic and genre defining. But I think because of that, a lot of people look over this book, which is a shame. It follows Dick Grayson as Batman, which was an era that I personally loved, as he faces against James Gordon Jr., a returning serial killer. Great book, probably the best book with Dick as Batman, and we all know I love me some Dick Bats. The final honorable mention is James Tynion's Detective Comics Rebirth run, starting with Detective Comics number 934. Don't worry about the numbers. They just do that so they can scare people and make a big deal about issue 1000 and pat themselves on the back. It really doesn't matter. Tynion is always a super enjoyable and consistent writer for Batman stuff, which is kind of rare to find these days. And this was always a run that I really enjoyed when it was coming out because of how much it let smaller characters shine. It was released during the same time as the Tom King run, so it makes a good companion piece to that series. Specifically, there's a fantastic moment in this run that I won't spoil, but it features Cassandra Cain and is a defining moment for why she's one of my favorite Bat family characters. I'm keeping this as an honorable mention because it's much more of a Bat family book than a Batman specific book, but it really is a great time and a great way to get familiar with some of these fantastic characters, some of which you might not know from other media. And finally, my number one recommendation for a Batman comic you might not have heard of is Batman War on Crime by Paul Dini and Alex Ross. This is without a doubt my favorite Batman story, and it absolutely doesn't get enough love. Paul Dini, who was a lead writer for Batman the Animated Series as well as the first two Arkham games, teamed up with the legendary Alex Ross to deliver probably the definitive take on everything Batman is meant to represent. This is a single one-shot issue and a spiritual successor to Dini and Ross's previous book Superman Peace on Earth, which was also fantastic. It tells the story of Batman as he fights his titular war on crime. Specifically, he's preventing the gentrification of a lower-income neighborhood called the Bayside, which has been overrun with drug rings, crime, and death. Nearly every page is a gorgeous splash page spread that just envelops the book with detail and love. My favorite thing about this book is that it essentially debunks the Batman should use his money on infrastructure instead of beating up poor people takes that people just love to make nowadays, showing the ways that Batman uses Bruce Wayne and Batman to help lower income and disenfranchised communities. It's not just about spending money, and it's not just about beating up criminals, but also about inspiring people and being a symbol for change. The most famous scene where Batman talks down this young boy Marcus as he points a gun at him is undoubtedly the most powerful single moment in any Batman media, and speaks so much volume that even if you've never heard of this book, you've no doubt seen this image. This story really just encapsulates everything that I love about Batman as a character and the things that make him special, and all superheroes as a whole. It's really just beautiful in all ways, and I can't recommend it enough. So yeah, there's a lot of Batman comics. Just like anything, some of them fly under the radar and don't leave much of an impact, but when you have a character that's this iconic and this beloved, you attract some truly incredible and talented people to create his stories. And that's not even to mention the countless other books that I haven't mentioned here. So if you're a Batman fan and you've only read the big name books that have had big animated movie adaptations, I seriously recommend giving some of these books a shot. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. If you like this video, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe, and let me know down below what your favorite lesser known Batman comics are. Special thanks to Alto the Sting, Cabbage Boy, Cassidy Bond, Chick McDoofus, Cosmic Tragedy, D13J12, Firebird Angel, Iron Ninja, Jonah, Corey's Not Fresh, Lime Spice XL, Logan Triplet Films, Simply Damn, The Artsy Fartsy Guy, Tim Neufeld, Troy Says Bye Erasure is Gay, love that name, Tyler Goodrich, Zachary Stonebreaker, Zero to Hero 148, and ZZ Toasty for making spectacular fanboys on my Patreon. Then Troy Boy 17 coming to you live. Stop being racist about a Little Mermaid movie, be responsible, and I'll see you guys around.